Hey guys, welcome to the first video. This is our first video of geometry, and we're really going to start off with just looking at some vocabulary with circles. Um, this is new for you, I know, so anytime you're watching these videos, if it gets going too quick, just pause it. If you miss something, go back in the video and watch it again. Okay, if you're doing something later and you need to come watch the video again, it's always here for you. Okay, go slow, use it how you want to use it. Um, I'm going to make these videos kind of short, straight to the point. And so if it gets going a little quick, just make sure that you stop if you need to stop it. All right, so we're going to start off with our first unit is just going to be some vocabulary about circles. Some of this is stuff that you know already. And so we're going to start off by just looking at area and circumference. Okay, and so when we talk about area of a circle, we're talking about what is the amount of space on the inside. When we talk about circumference, the C here, that is talking about what is the distance around the outside. And so when we're talking about these two things, we have these formulas that we can use. And so for area, we have pi times r, which we're going to talk a little bit is the radius squared. And then for circumference, we have 2 times pi times the radius. And so for us right now, we're just going to look at pi. We know that's approximately 3.14. You have a pi button also in your calculators that gives you a more exact number for pi. And so for now, we can just kind of approximate and use 3.14 whenever we need to. And so if I want to find area and circumference of the circle, this is telling me the distance all the way across is 18. And so what that's telling me is that the radius is half of that, which is 9. Right, and so if we want to find area, a little bit of review, we take pi times the radius, which we just said is 9, and we square it. I remember squaring something is multiplying it by itself, and so what that gives me is pi times 81, which the way we write that is 81 pi. That there is an acceptable solution. That is the exact answer that you would get. Okay, there's no rounded number there. If we type it into our calculator using the pi button, we will get 254.5. Remember, area is the amount of space on the inside, how many squares fit into that circle. And so when we write it, it's inches squared. Okay, circumference. Again, circumference is just a distance. It's the distance around all the way around this outside the circle. And so we're going to do 2 times pi times the radius, which our radius here is going to be 9. We could just type that into our calculator. Also, 2 times 9 gives me 18. So that is equal to 18 pi. Again, that is an exact solution. That is an answer. That is a number. If we type that into our calculator using the pi button, we're going to get 56.5. Again, circumference is just a distance. So this is inches. Okay. All right, so we're going to start off with looking at our different parts, our different vocabulary dealing with circles. So the first one is just what is a circle? Okay, and a circle is the set of all points that are equidistant, so the same distance from a given point called the center. Okay, so if we're looking at what a circle is really just the line here, and every point on the line is the same distance from this point P. All right, the way that we name a circle is always by its center point. So if I look at this picture here, we call that circle P because the center is P. The way we write that is we just draw a circle with a center. Okay, sometimes you'll see it with the dot there, sometimes you won't. And so that represents circle P. So P is our center, and so that's our circle. Next vocabulary, again, this is stuff that you probably have seen before. So a radius, okay, we know a radius is a segment, so it has endpoints. It's not a line, it doesn't go on forever. So a segment whose endpoints are the center and any point on the circle. So if we're looking at a radius, it's this segment right here, or this segment right here. Now, what do we notice about the radius? this circle has an infinite number of radii. It has all kinds of them going from center to the outside. Every single one of those are going to be the same distance. So if this is 4 centimeters here, this is going to be 4 centimeters here as well. Okay, so it's from the center to the outside. A chord. Okay, a chord is a new one. So that is again a segment. So it goes from, it has two endpoints, but the endpoints are both on the circle. Okay, and so what I mean by that is you have this segment where it has an endpoint and an endpoint. So that would be a chord, or endpoint and endpoint. So that's a chord. So again, we have multiple different chords within this one circle here. Okay, a diameter is a chord. Right, so a diameter has two endpoints on the circle. Now, what makes a diameter more specific than just any chord is that it goes through the center of my circle. Okay, so it goes from outside of my circle to outside of my circle, but it has to go through the center. Okay, so that's a diameter. I could go from here, goes through the center. That's a diameter. Right, and so it is still a segment, it still stops, but it has to go through the center. And so again, we know the diameter, we talked about it in the warm-up, that the diameter is twice as big as the radius. The radius is half the size of the diameter. Next one is a secant. Okay, so now everything we've talked about so far has been a segment. Well, a secant does not end, it's a line. Okay, so a line that intersects the circle at 2 points. And what I mean by that, right, so we get this line, so it goes on forever, and it goes through the circle at 2 different points. Okay, so we have it going through the circle here at this point, going through the circle here at this point. This right here would be a secant because it goes through the circle at this point, goes through the circle at this point. Okay, so any line that intersects, that crosses the circle at 2 different spots, 2 different points, is a secant. Now a tangent, again, is a line, but it only intersects a circle at 1 point. So instead of going through it at 2 different points, it only touches the circle at one specific point. So if I was going to draw a tangent right here, notice it only intersects our circle at that one specific point right here. Okay, so it only touches it one time, it stays on the outside. Now, that point where that tangent touches the circle, we call that the point of tangency. Okay, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The point of this tangent line, so the point of tangency. So a secant crosses the circle at 2 points, tangent crosses a circle at 1 point. Now, just like tangent lines, we also have tangent circles, mean similar things. Okay, so tangent circles are circles that intersect each other at 1 point. So if I go down here to these example here, these 2 circles only intersect right there. These 2 circles only intersect right there. Okay, so those are tangent circles. Concentric circles, if you look at all these 3 circles right here, you might be able to tell they all have this same center. Okay, so concentric circles are circles that have a common center point. And finally, congruent circles are circles that are the same size. Okay, so they have the same radius, same radii. And so what I mean by that is if the radius of this circle and the radius of this circle are both 4 inches, then those 2 are congruent circles. Okay. So real quick, let's look at 4 examples of naming these different parts of a circle. Okay, so the first one we have here is, remember, there's no arrows here, so that is a segment. Okay, it's a segment AC. So I go over here, segment AC has endpoints here and here. So that's segment AC. We know that a segment that has endpoint at the center and on the circle, that is a radius. Next one, again, segment AB. So now segment has endpoints at A and B. Now we could call this a chord, but to be more specific, since it goes through the center, it is the diameter. Okay, so yes, it is a chord, but that's just not the most specific answer. The most specific answer is the diameter. Okay, see, line DE. So now we're looking at a line, not just a segment, so it goes on forever. So line DE is this line here. So we want to look at how many points it intersects a circle. Well, really, if I would have drawn my line straight, it only intersects the circle at this one point, point B. And so that is a tangent. Okay, and like we talked about, point B then would be a point of tangency. Okay, and the last one, line AE here. This line intersects the circle at that point and at that point. So any line that intersects the circle at 2 points, we call that a secant. Okay. All right, guys, I want you to now go and do the short practice assignment to work on these vocabulary terms, just to make sure you know what they mean and you can observe them by looking at them in a picture.